jambalaya. For some of you, you might have had jambalaya. For some of you, you don't even know what jambalaya is. For some of you, you've heard of it. You might have heard it as jambalaya Creole, or you've heard of jambalaya Cajun. I'll talk about that. But when you look at this recipe, which is very authentic New Orleans Creole, you'll notice that it looks like a long recipe. And that's not to do anything other than to say that anything that's done in French cooking, or for this matter, a New Orleans Creole, it really does have a lot of ingredients in it, but a lot of it, a majority of it, is spices. It is a dish that can be backed off on the spice or added to the spice. It does have one of my favorite seasonings when I'm Cajun cooking, called Slap Your Mama, and that literally is the name of it. I'll show it to you. Credit to my oldest daughter for bringing that one to my kitchen. I use it and enjoy it on chicken and pork. It's very, very good. Talking to my boss the other day, he uses it on salmon. So there's an opportunity for you as well. So it's a great, spicy, kicks it up a little bit. I think you'll enjoy it. So let's talk about the recipe. Most of the recipe I've started cooking ahead of time. The reason behind that is it takes probably about 45 minutes. So it's not a long recipe, but you want to take the time to allow it to incorporate itself. You do have to cook the rice, probably the most important thing. And it's one of the last steps of this. But jambalaya is a rice-based dish. If you've ever had one of my favorite dishes at my house is paella. It's a Spanish dish. It's rice-based. This is very similar to that, except it has Creole Cajun spices in it versus saffron, which is the main component spice that is in paella from Spain. So with jambalaya, here's the difference. There was a question earlier. What's the difference between Creole New Orleans versus Cajun from the Cajun part of Louisiana? Cajun is more of a brown, smoky jambalaya. It doesn't have any tomatoes in it. So when you add the tomatoes into this dish, and I think this dish is better because you do add some tomatoes into it, it takes on a red tone. And once that red tone comes on, you still get a little smokiness, but it turns the rice and the proteins, which there's 3, to more of a red base than it is a brown base with Cajun. So we're going to make the New Orleans one, which is my favorite way of having it and favorite way of preparing it. So basically, you're going to just take some oil, put it together, get it warmed up, and you're going to cut up some andouille sausage. Now, here is the label. You can get that at your local Kroger, or just ask your butcher or ask the person at the meat counter, where do I find the andouille sausage? It used to be hard to find. Now it's a regular thing. There's actually 3 different kinds of andouille sausage at my local Kroger store. So it is widely available. The reason you want andouille is it's spiced accordingly to a New Orleans tradition, and it's very, very good. I'll show you the finished cooked product here in a second. You also want to do some chicken. You have a choice between chicken thighs or chicken breasts. I've switched to more of a thigh-based chicken in my house. So I whipped up a couple chicken thighs, but I first put Slap Your Mama on top of it, let it kind of marinate the chicken and get into the chicken thigh meat. Took off the skin, and then I shredded it for the dish. Then you get into the vegetable components. There's really some really fine vegetable components in this that I really like in a dish. First is onion. I probably cook 2 or 3 pounds of onions a week in my house. This one asks for a small sliced onion. It has both a green and a red pepper. So you can see I've already chopped up my red pepper. I've already chopped up my green pepper. I've also done some celery. I've also done some onions. And that's the main four components that make up the vegetables. Then I took an opportunity to put one of my favorite things in. It's garlic. I crushed up some garlic cloves, skinned them, minced them up, and put that on top of the vegetables after they started cooking. Then you start getting into why it's called a Creole jambalaya. You put the tomatoes on. I'm going to use some stewed tomatoes. We really like stewed tomatoes taste in our house, so we'll use that, crush it up. Then you get the spices, which are salt, pepper, thyme, dried oregano. This one component you can either put in or not. The andouille sausage and the slap your mama is already spicing the dish. But if you're one, not all of us, who likes a little bit of a kick, there's red flakes. We use a lot of red flakes in our house for this dish, and we use it also for when I want to spice up my tomato sauce when I'm making a tomato dish. But it also has hot pepper, which that's very much New Orleans. Frank's, I'm going to use a chili sauce today, which I really like, and I happen to have open. Now, one of the vegetables that we're going to talk about is okra. Okra is a little different. And why is it different? I can assure you, you can go to the store and you'll ask the vegetable guy, he might or might not even know what an okra is. But it is the prettiest flower of all in the garden. When you're growing okra, as I used to do at the Civic Center, right by where this is partially being broadcast, when I would grow okra, by far it was the prettiest plant, prettiest flower in all the garden. It's quite spectacular. And then when it's done, it produces this great southern addition to your vegetable dish. A lot of times okra is put in green beans in the South. It's also put in this dish. But okra is sliced. It can be fried. It can be added and sauteed in this dish like it is. So if you've never tried okra, it also comes frozen. I prefer fresh if I can get it. But if you can't find fresh okra with your produce guy, just ask him where the frozen okra is. And I double checked at my grocery and there was some today. So you have that as well. So after you put the chopped okra in, then you're going to finish off the spices with a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. I really like Worcestershire. I think it's an underutilized condiment to meatloaf and to beef. And in this dish, I think it adds another layer of flavor. Most people pronounce it many different ways. I pronounce it Worcestershire sauce. But I like Lee and Perrins. There's probably 3 or 4 different varieties you can find in the store if you don't have it. You're also gonna use the base of this, which is rice. It's 1.5 cups of rice that cooks for nearly 30 minutes to take the rice from a hard source to a softer source. And during that half an hour in the dish, it's gonna do a great thing of absorbing the spices and all the vegetables in the andouille and chicken in the dish. You add chicken broth to it. Why do you add chicken broth? Because it needs a liquid more than what's provided by the vegetables to take the rice from a hard source to a moist, chewable byproduct. One of the reasons why this is such a popular dish in New Orleans is for years before New Orleans had all its influx of tourism, they were looking for cheap components to make dishes. And in Creole cooking, rice is the main component. It's inexpensive, it's easy to prepare relatively, and it fits most of the dishes and spices that are used in Creole cooking. So I use balsamic rice. You can do jasmine. You can do long grain white rice, whatever you prefer. I like balsamic, and the reason why is I think it tastes very well. It's also very good on the glucose. If you're worried about your sugar, with rice, some of the other rices are not as good. Balsamic is very good in that regard. It's very balanced. And then the last thing is you finish it with a couple of shrimp, which is always New Orleans and Creole, and a little bit of chopped onions or pepper to add to the presentation, a little bit of taste. Now, here's a little footnote. When I bought my shrimp yesterday, my shrimp wasn't available where I usually get it, so I went to another place and I got it. I brought it home and I was unwrapping it this morning, and I had a very pungent ammonia smell. I mean, shrimp and lobster, if you've ever had that, has a more of a, you'll smell a little bit of ammonia, but this was very, very, very strong. So I further looked at it. I actually threw those shrimp out. And the reason I did that is I feel that my shrimp from yesterday went bad overnight and today in the fridge. So I wasn't going to make food poisoning or make anybody sick in my house when we had the jambalaya. So I threw those out. I got some frozen ones out that are from Argentina that will work just great. But just like with any protein, just like with any vegetable, it does have a shelf life. I didn't anticipate that I bought it yesterday and then it went bad this morning, but I caught it. I smelled it. I threw it away. Not 100% sure it was bad, but I didn't want to take the risk. So that's how you do that. So let's talk about making this recipe. So that's the ingredients. That's basically what you're going to do. I'm going to set the okra aside because I want to show you something in many different ways. My new tool for this month is something my wife picked up for me a couple of weeks ago, and I'm kind of tickled with it. I'm actually thrilled about it. So what's great about this is it's another cutting board that I have in my kitchen. Now, if you were in my kitchen, you'd know I have a couple different cutting boards. I've also featured some cutting boards on this. But this one is different in that it's bamboo, which we've already had a bamboo cutting board in our house. It was small. But this cutting board allows me to basically slice, dice, create one tray for the product that I'm going to use to cook with. And the other one is where I put the scraps or trash or recyclable vegetables that go in my compost pile. So it's pretty cool. I'm going to show you the board, and then I'm going to go get the vegetables that I've already cooked. So then I'm going to turn the dish over to a presentation. You can see this is where I put the vegetables when I'm done. This is the scrap, so it scrapes right off of the board right into there. And here's the cutting board. So that is the finished vegetables. That's the onions and red and green peppers and onions, and then you can see the garlic on top of it. All right, so pretty neat. I had to pre-cut that up, get it rolling. So now what you want to do is you want to add the tomatoes in the sauce to make it a Creole. So there goes the tomatoes in the sauce. This is a Dutch oven. If you don't have one, I highly encourage you to get one. It's a great Christmas gift. It's a great gift. It's a great thing just to have in your kitchen. So now you have your tomatoes in your dish. You added it to the other vegetables. Now you want to do a little salt and pepper. So there's your pepper. Fresh ground pepper in this dish is always important. A little bit of salt. All right. After you've done that, then you want to put your red flakes. This gives a little kick. All right. Then you want to put in your dried oregano, which is this. That's some thyme, dried thyme. Then after you've done that, you want to put in some hot sauce. Now I'm going to use a hot sauce that is a chili hot sauce, but I really like it, and it works very well. I find it to be a nice component in my fridge. Then you're going to put in some Worcestershire sauce, which adds another layer of flavor. And then after you've done your Worcestershire, then you want to thinly slice your okra. Now, why do you thinly slice it? Because okra can be a little tough, but it does mellow out. So let's move this over here. I'll show you how cool my cutting board is. So here's the cutting board. Notice how I move my fingers. When I'm done with this, I just put the old in there, and I just switch this over to the new. Cut there, throw it out. Throw it out, and then put this over here. So I bought 5 of these okras. Throw it out. Kind of nice. That's the little seeds in there that adds to the flavor. Now this piece of okra is a little tougher. So is this one. I have a very sharp knife. If that knife doesn't cut through it, then I know it's not. So there's my garbage. So garbage goes here. Finished product goes here. So then I move the there you go. So now I take this tray out. I put the okra in. So there's the okra. I put my tray back for my finished product. So the slices are in there. Now I've taken some chicken thighs. I've already cooked that. You want that already pre-cooked. Then I want to put in my andouille sausage. This is andouille sausage after it's been cooked, but it just adds a wonderful part to that dish. I think you'll appreciate the taste of andouille. And then I start to stir that. See how it's all coming together. And then after I do that, then I want to put in my chicken broth. So there goes the chicken broth, which is the base for the rice. So a little bit of chicken broth. Now I want to take the rice and I want to put the rice in. And I want to use 1.5 cups of rice. As I mentioned earlier, I use balsamic. So now we do a 25-minute cook with, see how the rice is in there with all the chicken, and that's all going to absorb those wonderful, wonderful spices. So that's what's great. So now it's going to go on the oven for 30 minutes. So the liquid gets absorbed into the product. Then when that's done, I'm going to just drop the shrimp on top and finish the dish after about 5 minutes. A shrimp cooked very quickly in hot heat. And then just sprinkle a little more salt and pepper to taste and a little bit more onion, and we're all set.